Hello. This time I'm gonna try to explain a little bit about scales and chords, specifically the major scale and the chords. For these, I'll be using the musical alphabet that corresponds to the solfege. A, it's La, B is C, C, Do, D, Re, E, Mi, F, Fa, G, Sol. So first, we need to understand that every song that we hear, every piece of music that we hear is built on a scale. So a scale is just a sequence of these notes that go from one note where I decide to start, let's say A, and then I end in the same one. So I am going to be using the C scale. C is going to be the first one, and I'm just going to go down the letters or notes. In this case, it's all of the white keys of the keyboard or piano. I have here only up to A because my purpose is to teach about chords and I only want to get up to A, but you should know that simply we have the next note B and then C, which is the end. The next thing I am going to do is I'm going to assign a number depending on the order of each one of these notes. So this is going to be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8. This is referring to the order of the notes of the scale, and it is very important. I chose to use these types of numbers and not the Roman numerals for a specific reason that you will see later. So now that I have my scale and I know which one is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, etc., the next thing I need to know is what's the distance between each note, because this is what makes a scale major or minor or any mode of scale that you may have. So I am going to be mindful of my tones and semitones, because if I choose to start from another note or letter, I'm going to be needing to use the sharps and flats in order to preserve the pattern of tones and semitones that I need for the major sound in this case. So from the first to the second, or from 1 to 2, I have one tone. From 2 to 3, one tone. From 3 to 4, I have a semitone. From 4 to 5, I have a tone. From 5 to 6, I have a tone. From 6 to 7, I have a tone. From 7 to 8, I have a semitone. This is very important, because if I don't have the semitone from the 3rd to the 4th and the 7th and the 8th, it's not going to be the major chord, major scale. It's going to be something else. So I need this pattern of tones and semitones for my scale to be major. Very good. The next step that I'm going to do is create a chord coming up from each note. So as you can see, my scale is the base, is like the soil, right? The floor. My song is built using notes from the scale, like the melody of the song or the melody line of a musical piece comes from the notes of the scale. But when I need to use chords, I'm going to use all of these notes. I'm going to build a chord coming up from each of these ones. So C is going to be the root of the chord. That's going to start here, the C chord. D is going to be the root. We also call these the bass. So this one right here would be the bass note. So I'm just going to go down and write my bass notes or my root notes. So this is the starting note for each chord. After that, let's say the C chord, I want to form the C chord. The pattern is to play a note, skip a note, play a note, skip a note, play a note. So I have C, E, and G for the C chord. So I'm just going to go down and write that down. For D, I'm going to follow the same pattern. Play a note, skip a note, play a note, skip a note, play a note. D, F, A. So I have D, F, A, E, G, B, F, A, C, G, B, and D, A, C, and E, and in this case I'm gonna go ahead, do this, that we have a little bit to the side right there. So as you can see, this one becomes the first, right? This is my first note, so each one of these is the first, is the base, the root of the chord. So I'm also can put like a little R here for root. Then this one becomes the third because it's the third letter. See, this is 1, 2, 3. So that would be the third letter in this order. 1, 1, 2, 3. So I'm gonna call this the third. And these are very important names in music. Like every little thing that I'm writing down and saying is very important when we talk about scales and chords. This, as you can guess, would be the fifth. Okay, so fifth because in the order 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, this one is the fifth. So if I'm talking about D, D would be the root 1, then D becomes my 1. So every time I'm here, this becomes my 1. This is 1 of this chord. So D would be 1, F, 1, 2, 3 is the third, 3, 4, 5, A would be the fifth of the D chord. Root, third, and fifth, root, third, and fifth of every chord. The next thing you need to know is that chords can be major or minor. So when you have a major chord, I'm going to put a capital M here. When you have the major chord, you want to have a space from your root to your third that of a specific number of semitones or tones, and you have from your third to your fifth, you want to have a specific number of tones or semitones, and that would be for the major chord, your first space, you know, from the root to the third, you want to have 4 semitones, which is the same as 2 steps or 2 tones, you know, 4 semitones. And the second little, you know, movement from your third to your fifth, you want to have 3 semitones. For the minor chord, I put a little M with a little line like this. This is my minor chord. You would need from your root to your third, in this case, this is a good example, the D chord, D, from D to F, from your root to your third, you want to have 3 semitones. From your third to your fifth, in this case, this is a good example, F to A, you want to have 4 semitones. So when you have the, you know, the higher number of semitones in the bottom part, this is a major chord. And then if the, you know, the smaller number is in the bottom, this would be a minor chord. So for naming the chords, we also use numbers many times, and in this case I'm going to choose to use the Roman numerals. These can be your preference. It is also something of historic, is, you know, something of historic importance also. You choose to use the numbers that you want, but I'm going to use the Roman numerals. So I have the first, the second, the third, the fourth, the fifth, the sixth, the seventh, and The eighth, which is the same one, I was just gonna write that like this, would be the major case, capital case 1. So the chords can be majors and minors, so as I just said. We know that the one chord in the major scale is going to be major. The second, it's minor. The third chord or the 3 chord is minor. The fourth chord, or you can say the fourth chord is major, so I'm going to put it major like this. The fifth or the 5 chord is major. The 6th chord is minor. The 7th chord is not only is different than minor, is diminished, and we put a little circle like this, or you can put DIM right next to it, but it's diminished. And because it is uncommon in most of the popular contemporary music, the chord, the diminished chord, I'm just not gonna focus on that one because I'm not gonna be teaching you much usages of the diminished chord for now. And then you have the major chord again repeated, your one chord at the end. Another thing you can use to differentiate is just a big M or capital M or a little m. M. This one still diminished and is the major one. So we can conclude that in the major key we have the 1, the 4, and the 5 chords are major. The 2, the 3, and the 6 are minor. And don't forget the diminished chord, which is the 7. Another thing that we have to take in consideration is, you remember this number that I wrote here? These are very important numbers, because I need to know when I'm playing the C chord, I need to be aware which note corresponds to the second, which corresponds to the fourth, which is the 6th one, which is the 7th one. That's going to be different if my root is D. This is my D chord, in this case the D minor chord. So if I start here, it's going to be minor. I need to know now this becomes 1, this becomes my 2, this becomes my 3, this becomes my 4, this is my 5, my 6, and my 7. As you can see, so every time I'm here, this becomes 1. So I need to be aware which is my 2, which is my 4, which is my 7. Because many times we see things like this. We see a chord, oh, that's the G chord. All I need to do is play G, B, and D. But then we see a number. What does that mean? Oh, that only means that if I'm here on G, B, D, I'm gonna add, in this case, another third. Another third would be like another circle right here. So in this case, it would be F. After D, you have E, D, and F, right? So F would be the note that I'm gonna be adding to that note. So if I'm on the piano, it would be just play a note, skip a note, play a note, skip a note, play a note, skip a note. Then you have other things like a C with a 4, or a C with a 2. Sometimes they put a sus 4, or you have any chord sus 2. That means substitute the third. This is my chord. Substitute the third and play the 4. So skip that one and just play C, F, and G. In this case, my 1, 4, and 5. So that's the purpose of these numbers. They are referring to the space that each note occupies in the sequence of the scale. But don't forget that every time you are on your root, like if you have a new root, So that becomes your 1 in the sequence. So this would be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. You know, so this never changes. It's just it depends where you start on the sequence of the scale that repeats over and over again. Okay, so I hope this was of help to you. Thank you for watching, and I see you on another video.